I'm posting this anonymously because it's a burden I've carried for years, and I haven't been able to confide in my family or even my closest friends, mainly because I doubt they would truly grasp the situation. I expect most of you won't either. I'll avoid any personal identifiers beyond the necessary details of the story. For the duration of our long marriage, the fact that my wife was unfaithful has been a secret not even my best friend, to whom I've told nearly everything, knows. Until this moment, only I, my wife, and the men she was with were aware. Our story began in the service we fell for each other hard and fast. We were inseparable, sharing nearly every moment since we were colleagues and also spent our leisure time together. Our constant closeness resulted in a marriage that might seem rushed to an outsider, but the sheer volume of time we shared accelerated our relationship beyond the typical pace. We had both decided against re-enlisting, but our separation dates from the military were about 6 months apart. I struggled to secure a local job, so we agreed that I would move back to my hometown to set up our future while she served her remaining time. We spoke on the phone daily, and our bond felt as strong as ever despite the physical separation. What I didn't realize then was that she was engaging in an affair around our first anniversary with a man introduced by mutual friends. He was also married, and their involvement continued for roughly 2 months. When she finally left the service, I was living with my parents to save money for our own place. We stayed with them for a few more months before getting our apartment. Around this time, a former boyfriend of hers appeared in town, pleading for her to take him back. She reassured me that her feelings for him were gone and his efforts were one-sided. However, it was evident something was amiss when her supposed confrontation with him stretched on for hours. I was gullible back then and took her word for it, believing she was simply trying to get him to move on. In retrospect, it's clear she was questioning our marriage and slept with him, either to validate her choice or because she craved the satisfaction he offered. Regardless, I suppressed my suspicions and chose to trust her. 2 years later, her demeanor toward me shifted. Nothing I did seemed adequate anymore, and she criticized my contribution to household chores, dismissing the fact that while I only worked part-time, I was also a full-time student. Our intimate life began to fade, despite my efforts to revive it. I observed her guarding her phone closely but dismissed it. She always had her phone on her, even during movies she wanted to see, and I had previously voiced my frustration about her not being present. I assumed she was just trying to be more considerate of my feelings. It wasn't until I needed to use her laptop for a school assignment that I finally uncovered the reality of her first infidelity. I opened it to find Chrome running with several tabs. I navigated to my school's website in a new tab, not thinking much of it. Her Facebook was active in one of the other tabs, and a new message had arrived from a mutual friend. My eyes instinctively glanced at it, but what seized my attention was an older thread from her first affair partner, explicitly stating how much he missed having sex with her. I felt a numbness spread through me as I read their entire exchange. He had since divorced and was attempting to reignite their affair from across the country. I saw it all. Messages and photos she sent him that were far more intimate than anything she had ever shared with me. I abandoned my assignment and spent the rest of the day just staring blankly at a wall. I later approached her, structuring my questions to give her an opening to come clean, but she refused to admit anything. I then asked to see her social media and emails to put my mind at ease, offering another chance for honesty, but she remained silent. All the while, she was on her phone, feigning boredom, but I watched as she deleted the very conversation I had read. When I finally confronted her directly, she claimed it was an isolated, drunken incident and that she had been trying to push him away. At that point in my life, a divorce would have meant completely appending everything, so I chose to stay. The nights that followed were filled with fantasies of a vengeful divorce, of exposing her infidelity to everyone, but I never took action. Another affair occurred towards the end of my bachelor's degree studies. She insisted it was purely emotional, that they only kissed before she realized her error and pushed him away. I knew that wasn't the truth. She had been having girls' nights with friends she no longer spoke to, and my suspicion was confirmed when I saw photos from one of these nights that didn't include her. I knew then it was an affair with the co-worker she had mentioned. After that, our intimacy wasn't just struggling, it was gone. Over the next 5 years, we were intimate maybe 5 times. On 2 of those occasions, I couldn't perform because my mind was flooded with images of her with other men. My suspicion is that she remained with me primarily for financial security. Not long after the affair with her ex, she discovered my family was quite wealthy. This knowledge seemed to stabilize our relationship for 2 years, and our intimate life saw a brief, though rare, resurgence. My family, however, doesn't simply hand out money, so any significant financial help from them only came much later and for tax purposes, not out of generosity. The real reason I stayed was her support. When my own friends and family expressed disappointment in my career choices or actively tried to discourage me, she was my rock. She was the first person who ever told me she was proud of me and genuinely meant it. Growing up in a home with high expectations and little praise makes that kind of validation incredibly powerful. Despite her constant betrayals, she was always there, championing my career and my passions. That, and the fact that no matter how deep the hurt, I still loved her. That 5-year span was the lowest point of my life. Outwardly, everyone perceived me as happy and successful, but privately, I endured countless nights sobbing myself to sleep on the sofa, questioning what I'd done wrong and why I wasn't enough for her. It was during this period that I contemplated suicide, but I couldn't go through with it. I didn't want to inflict that trauma on her, knowing she would be the one to find me. Even at my lowest, I loved her too much to cause her that pain. She had already endured so much trauma before we met, and I couldn't bear the thought of worsening the PTSD she suffered from a past assault. I can confirm she cheated with 4 different men, but I suspect the number is closer to 5 or 6, possibly more. For a time, she was active in a kink-based role-playing forum, but promised me it was just fantasy. Not being into that myself, I naively permitted it, hoping it might curb her need to be unfaithful. I later stumbled upon a message she sent a female friend from that group. It was on her Google Messages, which she had forgotten to log out of on my computer. She mentioned I'd be busy with class and work all day while she had the day off, and that she was finally going to meet and be with a man she referred to as Daddy. I never let on that I knew. But then, I had resigned myself to viewing our marriage as a convenient arrangement to launch our respective careers, all while I played the role of a devoted husband, ironically making my male friends envious of a wife who supported my hobbies and let me have nights with them. About 3 years ago, I saw my wife begin to make a sincere effort to repair our marriage, and I cautiously mirrored her actions. During this fragile time, I asked her why she cheated and why I was never enough. She alleged it was self-sabotage, that she felt she didn't deserve me and was hoping I would be the one to leave. I remain unconvinced. If her goal was to end the marriage, why all the secrets, lies, and desperate attempts to hold it together in the early years? 2 years ago, our relationship started to feel less like a romance and more like a functional partnership. We were going through the motions, but we also started actively doing things together as a couple again. I genuinely felt I was beginning to heal. The dark thoughts about my gun faded, and I started sleeping in our bed out of desire rather than obligation. I began making the small, romantic gestures I had stopped after discovering her infidelity, like bringing home flowers or buying thoughtful gifts. I became an active participant in her life again, and she did the same for me. For the first time in a decade, I felt loved. My marriage no longer felt so unbalanced. Our intimate life showed signs of life, but it remained sporadic and unfulfilling. The situation reached its climax 18 months ago during a major vacation we planned, our first in a long time that wasn't just a trip to see her family. It was for us. She had strongly hinted that it would be a very intimate trip. Yet, for the first 2 days, she rejected my advances and spoke to me as if I were a nuisance. It was the same familiar pattern of empty promises. "You're getting it tonight," followed by an excuse of being tired or having a headache. For some reason, that second rejection on the trip wounded me more than all the others combined. I had grown accustomed to the cycle of hope and disappointment, but this instance felt exceptionally cruel. It was then that I completely fell apart in her presence. I had cried in front of her before, but this was a total breakdown. I was hyperventilating, choking out the words, "Why am I not good enough?" and "What did I do to deserve this?" between sobs. I had been nothing but loyal, caring, and loving. I was the only person who knew the depths of her trauma, the one who comforted her through nightmares and panic attacks. Yet, for the better part of 10 years, I had felt profoundly unloved and alone, even while sharing a bed with the woman I loved. I know I wasn't a flawless husband, I could be neglectful with chores and had my own shortcomings, but I never betrayed her trust. The thought never even crossed my mind. I had always loved and supported her, and it felt like I was being perpetually punished for a crime I didn't commit. I asked her what those other men had that I lacked, what I needed to change to feel desired by my own wife again, but she couldn't give me a coherent answer. I believe in that moment, she finally understood the extent of my pain. After that, things truly began to change. Following that breakdown, she committed herself even more intensely to fixing our marriage, promising she would do whatever it took to make things right. The transformation wasn't overnight, but eventually, I felt the return of that profound connection we shared when we were first dating, that honeymoon phase bond. We started to want each other again, and I no longer felt like I was competing for her affection. She became transparent about her whereabouts and activities, and her affection felt genuine, not obligatory. After several more months of dedicated work on our relationship, we are now expecting our first child. My initial reaction was joy, as it felt like a child conceived from renewed love, not just an act of sex. I expressed my happiness to her, but also stated that, for understandable reasons, I needed to confirm paternity. She agreed immediately, only asking that we keep the matter private. I imagine you're asking, why did you stay? The answer is that I love her. I always have, to the point of being blind to her faults. Sometimes the reason is unclear even to me, but often it comes down to the simple fact that she was the one person who had faith in me. We may have projected the image of a perfect marriage to the public, but in reality, only the first year and this past year and a half have been truly good. I just couldn't bring myself to give up on her. It was never about being a pushover. I held all the power for a bitter, vengeful divorce and certainly contemplated it, but I never went through with it. I didn't want that for her. She was a broken and traumatized person when I met her, and I saw a light in her that I believe no one else ever has or ever will.